Welcome to the Impatient Entrepreneur Podcast, a show where we hear from entrepreneurs and business owners who are chomping at the bit to make their mark on the world. I'm your host, Lauren Quidar Cockrell. Now, let's hurry up and get to the good stuff. Hi, friends. Welcome back. Today, we are visiting with Roger Martin, co-founder and CEO of two national franchise brands, RockBox Fitness and Beem Light Sauna. He's also an author and a podcaster, and I'm anticipating a very rich conversation. Roger, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So tell us about the businesses that you have created. What do they do? And I also want if you don't answer it right away, I want to dig into how they became franchises as well.
Yeah. So I spent 25 years, the first 25 years of my career in corporate America. I was in the pharmaceutical industry. So I started, I was one of the drug reps carrying a bag, of samples and trying to get the doctor's attention and worked my way up the ladder, if you will, over the next 25 years, ended up becoming a chief operating officer of a company. And I'm really grateful and thankful for everything I learned in corporate America. I think corporate America gets a bad rap sometimes, well, deservedly so. But also, I'm really grateful for the lessons I learned, the leadership skills I developed, the persuasion and influence skills that I was able to hone. And I was afforded the opportunity to lead teams as large as 500 and manage divisions that were doing $400 million. So it gave me a lot of experience to take into becoming an entrepreneur. So really, the story I've shared this with others. I was in Barcelona, Spain, at a conference and a big trade show, and I'm in the booth, and I'm in my sharp suit, and I'm looking out over this sea of faceless, or nameless faces, I should say, and there's like 3,000 people in this trade hall, and I just for a millisecond had disdain for everybody in the hall, in the exhibit hall, and I realized, wait a second, it's not them. It's me. It's me. I'm unhappy. I'm in Barcelona, Spain on a full expense account. What am I doing? I should be elated.
What's my problem?
Yeah, literally. And I vividly remember that trip, and I just couldn't get my positive energy together. I just really, and I realized I've come to the end of this journey, and it's time to turn the page and start a new chapter. And that happens in life. And it happened to me, when I was 46 years of age. And so I had fortuitously met a gentleman who owned a couple Boxing for Fitness Boxing for Fitness studios. And my son wanted to take some boxing lessons. He was 12, 13 at the time, and called around to find the best boxing instructor I could, and ended up meeting this gentleman. And so he was training my son, and then he ended up several lessons in, turning my son's training over to a younger trainer that my son could kind of bond with. And because he was going through all that teenage stuff. And so that left Steve, the guy, and myself on the side of his studio, one of his studios, kind of arms crossed, just talking to each other. And he wanted to franchise his business. And I've always been passionate about health and fitness. It's funny, even though I kind of grew up in the pharmaceutical industry, I really believe that preventative care is 100% more effective. Yeah. And I love, this is true. This is true. Absolutely. And they're life-saving drugs. That's another industry that kind of gets, a bad rap. And there's a lot, when you need those drugs, you need those drugs. Right. It's just that, we usually treat sick people instead of trying to treat healthy people and keep them healthy. Right. And I'm super passionate about mixed martial arts, boxing. I love combat sports. And I'm also an ex-musician. I guess you're always a musician, but I used to play live music in my teens and my 20s and in bar bands and stuff. And I love going to live music concerts. And so we were, and that comes together because we were talking, and he had this concept and this workout, and kind of a unique structure of a workout. That combined boxing, kickboxing, and functional strength training. So, pushing, pulling, lifting, but no bikes or treadmills or, no stationary, boring stuff. And so he wanted a franchise, didn't have the capital, and it self-admittedly didn't have the marketing chops to do so. But he certainly had the product, and man, he has a hell of a work ethic. And so I realized this is speaking to me. This is an opportunity for me to step away from corporate America and become an entrepreneur. And so with that, we put together a 50-50 deal. I put in the capital, he put in all his expertise. And I said to him, hey, you've got to be willing to go all in on this. And that's up to and including changing the name of the 2 studios you have as we create this national brand. Because you asked, how do they become franchises? Both brands that I've built were built to be franchised. They weren't just like, hey, let's start a company and then, well, it's really successful, maybe we can franchise this.
Right.
Because when you build a franchise, it needs to be very intentional around the operating procedures, around the simplicity of the business model. There has to be a pretty sophisticated approach to customer acquisition, to customer retention, because the average person needs to be able to do it on an average day with, kind of average work ethic to make a franchise go. So we ended up putting a deal together. Within 4 months of that, I left my corporate, I did a succession plan and transitioned out of my COO role. That was like on a Friday, and I woke up on a Monday, no health insurance, no salary. I was like, wow, okay, I'm really in it. Here we go. That the roller coaster goes over the edge, right? And so I just I got to tell you, like, if any entrepreneur or anybody is listening or thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, that Monday is scary as hell. So don't kid yourself that it won't be.
Yeah.
When you actually go all in. Like, side hustle is one thing, but when I quit a multi 6-figure job, stock options, the whole thing, and just went for it. But by Tuesday, I was a little freaked out. By Wednesday, I haven't looked back since. I haven't looked back since. And I'm so fortunate. I feel, just blessed to live the life I do. Lots of hard work. It's harder than you think it's going to be, but it's so much more worth it. So we ended up, I built the flagship studio, the first RockBox Fitness studio. So the name of the company is RockBox Fitness. And the reason I shared that about live music is we've created this workout in these studios. We have about 60 nationwide now. That it feels almost like a rock and roll show on the hour every hour.
Cool.
And the instructor is almost like the lead singer that's leading the room. There's light, color, adaptive lighting that changes with the music, and so it's a very experiential workout. Not like, okay, 3 sets of 10, here we go again. It's not that.
Kill me.
Yeah, exactly. So, because the biggest problem with working out is people get bored.
Right.
And if they get bored, they quit. And if they quit, they regress in their fitness goals. And so we wanted to create just an opportunity for people who, are bored with the routine or haven't been in the gym in 10 years and want to get back and recapture some of the fitness they may have had at an earlier age. But they don't want to go to a gym and just push weights and pull weights and whatnot. They want a fun time with a community that also, boxing is just primal. When you strike a bag, it just feels amazing. So nobody gets punched in the nose. We only bust calories. We bust calories, not noses. But we've put together this great brand, and then we started franchising in 2018. And then we got, I think when COVID hit, we had about 15 studios open. We got every single one of those studios through COVID, not a single permanent closure in COVID. Wow. Very, very proud of that. And then now today we have about 60 open and operating locations, all over about 20 different states, I believe.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then just, kind of, if we go back to 2021, fortuitously again, I met this woman named Cynthia May. She had an infrared sauna studio. Again, it was called something else. We renamed the concept to Beem Light Sauna, 2 E's, BEEM. Beem Light Sauna, and it's an infrared sauna studio where you go and you have a private room with your own private infrared sauna, or it can fit 2 people if you want to bring a partner or spouse or somebody, but usually people just come in for a solo session. And then we also offer red light therapy. We have something that's called viridescent therapy, which is green light technology that can actually reduce circumference of your waist and thighs and arms. It's amazing. So no shots, no pills. It's leveraging science. It's leveraging the power of specific wavelengths of light at a specific intensity to get results of, detoxification, less pain. Certainly, you boost your metabolism, so you burn up to 600 calories per session. But it's enjoyable, and so we've built these health and wellness brands, and then Beem it's just taken off like a rocket ship. We've awarded over 300 licenses so far. Wow. We've only been just a little over 2 years we've been franchising. So at the end of this year, because of finding real estate construction for the franchisees, those 300, it'll take a long time to get those open. This year, by the end of the year, we should have about 40 open. 50 open. By the end of next year, that should be closer to 150 open. So it's, and again, nationwide. So that brand has just, it's the right brand. It's a beautiful brand, right brand at the right time in the right market. And yeah, so I have a small nutrition company that really is sold mainly through RockBox Fitness. We've started another company that is like an outbound sales company that helps do pre-launch for our Beem Light Sauna franchisees. We'll work with other companies later, but right now we're just working with the Beem franchisees. So we help them open their doors with 200 members so they cash flow from day one.
Yeah, nice.
And then a couple other ventures, to stay busy. So yeah.
Right, because we just don't have enough on our plates,
Exactly.
do we?
And every time I tell my wife, I'm like if I exit a business, and I'll have a transaction, which is always nice. And I tell my wife, all right, don't let me open or start another company. Like
she's like,
just rolls her eyes. Yeah. And then it won't be 6 months and I'll say, hey, I'm moving some money because she's like, all right, just whatever, do what you want to do. Yeah.
Just don't touch the 529s, please.
Exactly. Well, thank goodness my kids are grown. My 23-year-old, she lives in Cleveland. I've got a 20-year-old. He's chasing the music dream out in Los Angeles. And so and he went to like a 1-year music production school, and she went to Chapel Hill. So their 529s took care of that, and the rest they got because she got a scholarship, and he went to this 1-year school. So
perfect.
I'm done. I'm out. Yeah, so they're off the payroll.
Move that money around, baby.
Yeah.
Well, I want to dig in more, but I have to ask my first official question, which is, Roger, are you an impatient entrepreneur?
That is a great question, and the answer is undoubtedly yes. Undoubtedly yes. One of my biggest, I feel, not chores, what's the word I'm looking for, but tasks as a CEO is to purge latency out of our businesses. It is so easy for, especially the bigger the companies get, let's talk more about that. Let's have another meeting to discuss that. And again, I lived that life for 25 years. Like, we don't need a committee. We need the information, because decisions don't take time. They take information. But once we have the information, let's act.
Right.
And yes, I am 100% impatient. I do not like to just go round and round. I want the data. I want to make data-driven decisions. But once we have the information, it's time to act.
Right. Yeah, I think, and sometimes not making a decision is a decision. It's like, okay, well, why are we dragging our feet here? Do we just not want to do this? Like, let's stop having a meeting about it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I'm curious, do you feel like in your corporate role, do you feel like maybe you were an intrapreneur? I mean, has this always been a part of you, and you were following a path that had been laid out for you? You're taking care of your family. You're moving along and being very successful at it. But do you feel like this has always been a part of you?
I do. I was not the kid that had the lemonade stand, the paper route, but I was. It's funny. All my jobs were like, even when I worked at a pizza place in high school, I wasn't the guy making the pizzas. The owner very quickly ascertained that this guy's pretty persuasive. And so I was put in this little separate room right off the kitchen area. And I answered the phones for all the incoming orders, and my job was to upsell for like 2 pizzas or more toppings, or, hey, would you like sodas with that? And, and I loved it. Like I got a little, very small, but little commission on that. And, I think back then minimum wage was like $3.35 an hour. So if you made another $1 in commission per hour, that was, you were crushing it.
Yeah.
And so, I got my taste for that and really enjoyed that, and had other sales jobs in college. And then, yes, in corporate America, I loved having a territory that was mine. I loved having a district that was mine, a region that was mine, a nation that was mine, that I could then drive revenue. I could, implement change in and lead and inspire teams to outperform last year or the year before that. So I've created divisions in companies from scratch. In pharma, you can't create a product, of course, because but I, created divisions, and then the way those divisions were deployed. So yeah, very much so an entrepreneur within those companies. And I will say, though, that that's great training,
Mm-hmm.
great training wheels, but it's way different when it's somebody else's money.
It is.
It's way different. It's
like, oh, where's that expense account?
Yeah. Yep. You look, you're definitely, if you're doing it right, you're watching your expenses much closer. You're doing that analysis. Hey, this may get me recognition, but will this make any money? If it doesn't make any money, we're not doing it.
Right.
And I think in corporate America, a lot of times unfortunately, it can be more about recognition and
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. You said something a little bit ago that I want to dig into a little bit. You were talking about when you're building a franchise, it's different than a standalone business, and that you're looking for relentless repeatability, basically.
Great. Yeah, great word.
And I'm curious, surely there's some transferability for those of us who are running one shops that we're not looking to franchise necessarily, but we want to grow. And do you have some tips that you do think, okay, this works really well because it can be repeated by anyone, anywhere? What do you feel like are some tried and true things that you're doing to make your franchise business scalable that can come over to other types of businesses?
That's a great question, and 100% relatable, because even if you own your own shop, so to speak, your own business, and it's just a single entity, single location, single whatever, unless you want to be the business, which means, by the way, you have no exit value at the end if you ever decide to sell it, because you're the business. And we all, I don't want to, we've all read, don't sell your time for money and blah, blah, blah. But if you, and so the moral of the story here with a franchise is everything has to be documented. Everything has to be simplified so that anybody coming into the business, any new hire, as you scale, as you grow, or if just somebody, leaves for another opportunity or decides to do something different, then, you can bring a new hire in, and that person can, if not hit the ground running, can come up the learning curve very, very quickly, because everything is templatable. And too often, and I'm just as guilty as anybody, too often in a business, we will, we have all this tribal knowledge in our head, and the team is so great, and they've been with me forever, and everything's running well. Well, that's the perfect time then to take a step back, to go a little bit slower, so that later you can go faster. And by that I mean, okay, Susie, you're in this department and you're amazing, but if you win the lottery tomorrow or get hit by a bus, we're screwed. So we need you to document every process that you do. And, not today, like this is going to be like a 60-day, 90-day project, and make sure you have a standard SOP form. Just Google that and you'll find 1,000 of them, but just pick one. And then, there cannot be too much detail. An SOP is not supposed to be fun to read. It's supposed to be detailed, right? It's supposed to be, it's not entertaining. Like it's just this very dry, but it needs to be, turn on the camera, then, turn this dial to focus the camera, then adjust the height of the camera. I mean, like it's, to 18, like whatever, it has to be so specific so that anybody can pick that up. And especially, and this is really to the entrepreneurs that are listening, the boss, the owner, is usually the worst person at documenting and documentation. Because I am
guilty.
Yeah, me too. 100%. I'm the worst. And so I know that, though. So I've hired people that help me with that and that do that, because I won't. I have disdain for doing that, because I'm an impatient entrepreneur. So I just want to go to the next thing and keep growing. But if you don't, you will end up with a business that maybe makes you plenty of money, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot harder for you to manage as people come and go. And at some point, you should be able to have an exit if you so choose, or pass it on to your children, or pass it on to, maybe it's an ESOP, which is still a nice exit, where the employees take it over, but it can't just be in your head. And so, man, that's a long-winded rant, but it's really, I just want to drive home the point that so many of us as entrepreneurs, we just figure it out. Like that's what we do. We figure stuff out, and then we go on to the next thing. Well, stop right there. And if you don't want to do it, because I don't, have somebody document the process for you, and then go on to the next thing, figure that out, have somebody document that. And then you will end up with a business model. You don't end up with a business, you end up with a business model. And then you can take that business model to market someday, sometime. And too many people just build without this thought of, well, when I decide that I have enough money or I don't want to do this anymore, or God forbid I get sick, you need to be able to have a bulletproof business. And the only way to do that is through standardization and documentation, which is boring as hell, man. Like, I'm not here to tell you it's boring as hell. And especially with the title of your podcast, like everybody's listening and going, yeah, sure, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And probably 1% will hear me and do it. But I'm telling you, I've learned that through franchising. You have to be so diligent. And then when you just think about it, no, any business, you really, really do. You really do.
Yeah. I'm not incredibly diligent about this, but I do have just a personal rule of, if I do it more than once, I try to make a Loom video for it or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I've done this twice now. It's either bothering me and I need to do something about that, or it's something that we're doing more than once, so I need to record it to hand it to somebody else.
Yep, you're right. Absolutely. And even a Loom video is, to me, is 99% better than nothing, because I'm showing somebody exactly what to do, just and it's a really quick thing to do. So that it doesn't have to be these written, boring things. It could be Loom videos, and it could be you talking into a voice recorder or whatever, just a video camera, anything that documents it to make it easier.
Exactly. And you were talking about exit, and I was at a business owners event the other day, and the MC was saying, raise your hand if you're planning to exit your business. And I'm thinking of, I'm curious what that would look like. I've had my hand in the air, but not many people had their hands up. And he was saying, well, you're all going to exit at some point. You might be leaving on a stretcher.
Yeah, exactly. You may not have a choice.
Yeah, this has an end, so you should probably be thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean, we all should be building a business that could last 1,000 years. I mean, that'd be the goal,
right?
Easier said than done, but it's yes. I think too many times, tech, of course, you build it to exit, and AI now, you're building it to exit, but a plumbing business, a marketing business, there still should be that opportunity if you so choose. You may decide to wind it down, but I'm sure most listeners have also heard that the trillions and trillions of dollars of wealth that are going to be transferred from the baby boomers to Gen X and or even their millennials. And so much of the wealth that was created was from small business, and there's really no succession plan. There's really there's no documentation. There's not good books. And so these valuable businesses are either being sold for pennies on the dollar, or they're just being wound down and just dissolved, which is a shame.
It is
somebody's life's work is just being turned off.
I know. It's you're right. I hope people are taking heart here. Okay. So you leave your golden handcuffs behind, you take the plunge. Did you make a lot of it up as you went? Did you feel, obviously you had a breadth of experience, and I'm not discounting that, but as far as setting up these processes, making things templated, was that something that you went and got some training on? Did you bring consultants in to help you, or is the Roger Martin way and off he went?
Another great question. Very insightful. So I started making up a lot of it as I went,
as we do,
and it wasn't working very well. And so I did then go out and find experts in given things. So online digital marketing, which is so essential to a brick and mortar business. I paid, to learn how to do that. Now, a lot of people will outsource things, and I get that. I do outsource some things, but if it's core to our business, I want to learn it. Now, I've since built 2 digital marketing teams, and they are, they're helmed by somebody else, and I just am involved from the peripheral, because the people that I've trained are now the experts in it. But I understand it, and when I need to get back involved in our agencies, I can. But the digital agency is something that so many franchises or businesses outsource, and they understand very, very little about it. And it seems like, it's magic or it doesn't work, whatever. When customer acquisition should be near and dear to every entrepreneur's heart, and at least understand it. So I worked to become an expert in that, and I paid, bought courses and paid a consultant, and was part of a mastermind and all that to really get good at that. And then, today I'll spend more on my continuing education, meaning just like leadership programs,
Mm-hmm.
3-day courses or 3-day, retreats, whatever. I'll spend more this year than I spent on my undergraduate and my MBA combined. I went to state school, so that's not
Yeah.
saying a lot,
Well,
but
still, yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
but I'm 53, I'm investing more this year than I paid for my undergrad and my MBA, because I know that it's not the world is changing,
Mm-hmm.
and the hardest thing would be to try to conquer this world with yesterday's skills.
Right.
And so I want to continue to sharpen my saw, the old saying, sharpen the saw. And so I just can't, I would never sit here and say, yep, I had it figured out and entrepreneurship came easy to me. The work ethic to do anything, no matter what it takes, that's inbred in me. That's part of my fiber. So like I won't lose. I refuse to lose. That has a lot more to do with fear of failure than it does of chasing success.
Yeah.
I'm being very honest.
Same.
And I think so many entrepreneurs are wired that way. We fear failure, which makes us succeed by default. I don't mind to lose as long as I've done everything I can, but I don't want to fail from not working, not trying, not giving it everything. So yeah, I would say that, figure out what you can, but the superpower of any entrepreneur is to say, I don't understand this. Can you help me? And I don't know why we won't ask for help, because there's a pride thing or something, but just go find somebody that knows how to do this. You've already been here. You've done this. Help me. Who should I talk to? What courses did you take? What books are you reading? What podcasts are you listening to? What groups are you part of? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs try to go about this alone, which is the wrong way to do it.
Right, exactly. Because this is probably one of the loneliest jobs you can have, other than, maybe being on top of a lighthouse by yourself. But yeah, it feels that way a lot of times too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's one of my questions, actually. It is, how do I find entrepreneurs to be a very curious bunch, really, a lot of self-taught, beyond formal schooling, if you went that route, and then just always reading or learning or listening or whatever. And so, if you have any particular nuggets you'd like to share, like if there are any books that were particularly impactful or courses that you highly recommend, would love to hear that.
Yeah. I read probably, it was like 40 to 50. Now it's like 60 to 70 books. I sign over my shoulder here. I have a podcast like you, and if somebody has a book, I always like to read it so I can speak to it. So it's forced me to read even more. But every airplane I'm on, I'm always going to be reading a book. I've learned to read fairly quickly and still retain a lot. But I also like to go back and reread a book. So that's funny. I read. I just got back from a trip abroad, as you and I talked about before we went live here. But I landed on a Friday night, flying back from Rome, repacked my bags, and flew out at 7 a.m. to go to Austin, Texas, to speak at a conference that was being held in Austin. And I read a book on the plane on the way from Charlotte to Austin. I read most of it, then I finished it in the hotel room. And then on the way home, I reread that same book, but went back through, and the pages I had dog-eared and little things, and I started making some notes and whatnot. So, because I knew I would, and I was taking notes in my journal as well from the book. So yeah, I would say, it's all the classics: How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's, I think if you're an entrepreneur, you have to read Russell Brunson's trilogy of his secret trilogy, which is like Expert Secrets, .com Secrets, and Traffic Secrets. Those are wonderful. If you're doing anything online, and I don't mean e-commerce, I just mean anything online,
which is all of us.
all of us. Those Alex Hormozi's books are outstanding. I used to be in one of his consulting groups, because I was in the fitness business, of course, right? And that's where he got his start, and he's taught me so much about customer acquisition. But literally just go to Amazon's bestseller book list, and if there's 10 on there, pick 5 of them and read them. So I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books. I will say that if you're a person that doesn't love to read books, pick up a great biography, like Michael Dell's biography, Dell Computers. Unreal, and the lessons that you'll learn there. read Ride of a Lifetime by Bob Iger. Now he's not an entrepreneur, he's been in corporate America his entire life.
Yeah.
But he's helmed Disney, and just the leadership lessons in that book. And it's a really enjoyable read. There's another book called Creativity Inc., which is written by the ex-CEO of Pixar. And I learned from that is how to approach managing creative people, because creative people are different than
we are. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so there's a different way to lead them. So I do enjoy, and then I think I will give you a recommendation. Mark Randolph, who is the co-founder of Netflix, that book, and the name of the book is That Will Never Work. And the story of Netflix is just, I couldn't put we went on a weekend trip to Asheville, and my wife's like, let's go. I'm like, I can't. I got to finish this. I mean, we were in Asheville in the hotel room. I'm like, I can't put this book down.
Wow.
It was that good. It was, oh my gosh, it was so much fun to read. Just how crazy. Because then I remember being a very early adopter of Netflix, so like I could relate to all this. So yes, there's 100 titles I could recommend, but what matters is read what is spurs you on to read something else. In advertising, the headline's job, and its only job, is to get you to read the first line of copy.
Yes.
and the first line of copy's only job is to get you to read the second line of copy, right? And on and on. And I think of that, I think reading and further education is the same way. A great book's job is to change your thinking and to give you lessons and to give you some nuggets, and hopefully you'll put 3 of those actually into action. But its job is to pique your curiosity and think, well, what else don't I know? Well, let me go find a book on that.
Yeah.
And that book, exposes you to something else. And you say, what else has he or she written? Well, let me read that one. And to me, that's the way, because you're not looking at a guy that like loved to go to school and loved to read. I think I did when I was really young, and then high school I was playing live music and girlfriends and all, and all that stuff. And then college was fun, and then by the time I got my MBA in my late 20s, I was definitely more serious about school, because I wanted to learn. I wanted to be there. It was by choice.
Right. You're opting in now.
Yeah, exactly. Good work. I'm opting in. But man, it's in the last probably 10 years that I've just thirsted for knowledge. Just love it. Like it's not a chore. I love it. And I think the key though is too many people read a book and then they set it down. They go, that was awesome. Wow, man, I really learned a lot. And then they go back to doing everything exactly the same. Pick one or two things and apply it immediately. If you don't do it immediately, it's not going to happen. Same thing as going to a conference. Like when you go to a conference, you're like, oh, I'm so inspired, and this is great, and I'm going to make this much money or be this kind of leader. And then you go back and you do things exactly the same. You have to take those learnings and apply it. And that's the entrepreneurs that change the world, that change their community, that create future leaders and make a lot of money, are the ones that do put new ideas, new opportunities into action, versus, because they're impatient entrepreneurs, versus just, like, oh, that is great. Yeah, I should write that down in my book, in my notebook. Well, just do it.
Right.
Like, don't think about it. Just go do it.
Right.
And you'll affect change.
I think that's really good advice too, because I've certainly read plenty of wonderful books that had tons of insights, and I'm inspired the whole time reading or listening. And then it's overwhelming because you want to boil the ocean or whatever the phrase is.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm ready to just do all of it. And it's like, no, I still have to answer some client emails and move on with my day here. And it just gets overwhelming. And so just picking something and committing to it and carving out that time to like, okay, today's the day I'm going to start, daily stand-ups or something like that. And just do it.
Yeah. And pick one thing that you can consistently do. Because if you don't, your team's like, oh gosh, she just read a book and we're going to do this for a week. And then she'll read it,
that probably has happened.
That too sometimes. Once or twice. So, I would rather just pick one thing from a podcast, one thing from this podcast that, okay, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to consistently do that for 90 days. Because then it'll become a habit and part of our culture. Too often, it's flavor of the week and that's on to the next thing. So you're way better, pick 3 things and just go all in on those, or one thing and go all in on that, master that, then go to the next thing, master that, then go to the next thing.
Love this. So helpful. Okay. So are you impatient about anything in particular right now?
Hmm. Yeah, I am. So I'm a franchisor, which means I have franchisees.
Mm-hmm.
And a franchisee is really, it's a person who owns their own business. They're an independently owned and operated business using our business model. They're operating under contractual terms of our business operating model, and they need to operate their business in the way that we have contractually mandated them to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I am impatient in the fact that every person is going to go at their pace. They are going to learn at their pace. They're going to grow at their pace. They're going to operate at their pace. And I get impatient when I see 15 things that could so easily happen and be instituted or implemented from our playbook, not new things, just from our playbook. And people could make so much more money and help so many more people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's their business and it's their life, and they get to make those decisions. But it is hard for me sometimes, and I have some amazing franchisees, like just some absolute amazing franchisees. But I also have, there's like anything, there's a bell curve, and I have some people on the left side of the bell curve that, it feels like I care more about their business than they do.
Yes.
And that's and I'm sure if there's a consultant, I'm sure you have a lot of consultants that listen to this, or coaches, and it's hard because that if they would just do X, Y, and Z, it's so easy. Like it's not, it's simple. I shouldn't say it's easy because business isn't easy, but it is pretty simple.
Yeah.
You
laid it out for them.
Yeah. So you got to do the work, but so I think I get impatient around that.
I've decided a long time ago that I can't care about our clients' businesses more than they care. Like I can be right next to them or underneath them, but when we start caring more, it's just a horrible dynamic. It's like, you know what? I gotta rein it back in. This is just too much grief is ahead, but it's hard because you do see the potential. But yeah, you can only be so emotionally invested before it just gets a little toxic.
Yep. 100%.
And you have your podcast. How long have you had that?
About a year.
Okay.
I think right at a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're also an author. When did you publish your book?
January of 2024.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
January of this year.
a new book, baby. Okay, so congratulations.
I love it. Thank you. I'm really proud of that book because it's called An Insider's Guide to Business: Secrets from an Entrepreneur's Playbook. And it had been in my head for years, but it really crystallized, as I got all this entrepreneurial experience. And I finally sat down again, had started writing chapters but never got anywhere. Paid a pretty nominal fee for a writing coach, and not a ghost author, mind you. This thing was me typing out 46,000 words on my computer, on my laptop, like no AI, no ghost authors, none of that stuff. It was me typing. But just a coach who really just managed me through emails saying, okay, today, here, do the outline. Then tomorrow, go back, refresh the outline. Okay, the next day, the third day, write the title chapters, and it was such a formulaic approach that held me accountable. And again, that's where, if you don't understand, ask for help. And I got served the ads on my phone. So I am sure that I was talking to my wife or somebody like, man, I'm struggling writing this book, and all of a sudden, boom, here comes a writing coach ad, but it just really helped me. And then I guess what I'm most proud of is I got the book written in just a little over 30 days. And I put a lot of time, I just grinded it out. But then I did 7 full edits, cover to cover edits, 7 times to make it more simple, more simplified. I had 4 people help me read it, make comments, this chapter or this sentence, I'm not quite sure what you're trying to drive home here. This paragraph seems like it should be. And so I went through it 7 full times to now where I believe I have a book. I'm confident because I've had many people compliment me on it, that it's just an easy read, but one that is very impactful to them on takeaways and things to do. Because I know where, It's not based in academia. I've read every one of those books and used to subscribe to Harvard Business Review, and that's great. But some of that stuff is theory, and a lot of it, if it's not theory, it's interviews of people. It's not people who have actually done it. It's interviewing the CEOs or the entrepreneurs that have done it, versus I'm actually the dude that is still doing it. And here are the mistakes I made. Don't do this. And here are the things that worked really, really well for me. And so you should probably replicate this and then put it into, 11 chapters that, one goes into the next. And it's like, if you're going to start your business, what's the most important thing to do first, which is values. And I explain why, not just, values, because we've all had values in corporate America. They're on a wall or they're in the bottom drawer of your desk. You never look at them. But there's a reason, if you want to make your decisions easy when things get tough, you create your values when you're starting your company. Then I go into, there's a chapter on finance for people that are not in finance, sales, marketing, operations, leadership, hiring, how to hire and hire only A players and why that's so important, but how to do that. And, I list the questions that people probably are asking, which are just throwaway questions because they've always been asked in the history of interviewing.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so I get down to competency selection interviewing and why you need to interview for traits, hire for traits, not for experience. So I think the book, it's the book I wish somebody would have handed me 7 or 8 years ago when I started as an entrepreneur, because I'd read all the corporate stuff. I'd read all the theory. I'd read, Harvard Business Review, and, I subscribed to Harvard Business Review and read those articles. But I hadn't found or read a book that said, okay, if you're an entrepreneur though, and you have a small to mid-sized business and you don't have a $500 million budget, here's a way to go about it. And that's what I tried to write.
Well, what a gift. Easy to understand and actionable. That is a 1-2 punch you don't find out there a lot.
Exactly. And by the way, all the proceeds, this book, all the proceeds go to a charity called To Write Love in Her Arms. So I've committed to never making a red cent off this book. I want all the proceeds to go to Write Love in Her Arms, which is a charity that helps prevent self-harm and, hopefully prevent suicide or prevent suicide. So it's a great organization that helps young people that are struggling with mental health, which I just don't think we talk enough about, these days. And
agreed.
So if somebody goes on Amazon to buy this book, all that money, all the proceeds, whatever Amazon doesn't take, goes to Right Love in Her Arms. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we will be sure to put that in the show notes, and thank you for doing that. Okay. So switching gears for a little bit, I want to know, since you've been on your entrepreneurial journey, has there been a moment where you felt like you were being faced with the worst thing that could possibly happen? Like the rug has just been ripped out from underneath you and you're like, oh my God, how are we going to survive this? But now looking back with perspective, you realize it was probably one of the best things that could have happened.
It's funny until you finished your question with that last thing. I was going to say, well, are you talking about this morning, yesterday morning, the morning before that?
Yes. I know it's the clincher. It's the abundance mindset. It's the learning from our lessons, even if it's like, I can survive anything,
Yeah. So many times, and I don't know if I've met an entrepreneur that has said, oh yeah, it's great. Launched it and, made zillions. It was easy. And that's why I love reading founder stories. You understand, okay, I'm not crazy. This is insanely hard. There's a reason why there's a high failure rate with businesses, because it's freaking hard. And that's why I love founder stories. Although the one thing, I'll just quick sidebar and I'll answer your question. I even write this in my book, the Insider's Guide to Business. I don't understand, in the finance chapter, I don't understand though why every founder's stories book always has a chapter or a paragraph where they're like, so, things are taking off like a rocket. I was ready to celebrate. And my CFO walks up to me and says, we're not going to make payroll on Friday.
Yeah.
And they always act surprised. I'm like, how in the hell would you not are you not watching? So, I say in there, you check your bank balances. Of course, I get a cash report from my controller, but I check my bank before I check social media. I check my bank balances every single morning of every one of my businesses and credit cards and those business, all that stuff. It's all in one login. So I can see that. So I will never be surprised. When we've had cash crunches, I knew they were coming, which is just funny. 'Cause we were doing great. And then all of a sudden we're out of cash. Like, how the hell did you not know that? But
right.
So I would say, it's funny. I write about this too. It's not been like these crazy strategic things or cash, cash issue. I mean, we've had cash issues, but we've worked through those. The things that have brought me to my knees were dumb stuff. And I write about this. Like when I launched Beam Light Sauna, I built my own studio with my own money, no corporate money, none of our partner money, like my own money, to open this studio so I could, and I still have it today, understand the pain points in the business so that we could then purge those out before we started franchising. And the funniest story is, one of the partners in the business had the original at the original location. I then ended up building one down in the city of Charlotte. And I did a pre-launch, which means that I sold 170 memberships before we ever opened. And the day we opened, of course, we were booked solid from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. at night. And the laundry equipment that I had bought to do the towels, because we provide complimentary towel service after the saunas and all that, it couldn't keep up. And I mean, like a half a room full of soiled towels that had to be laundered by the next morning because the whole another crew of clients were coming in. And I had I had a young team of all women, and in their early 20s, and so we couldn't keep up. So that means somebody had to go to the laundromat from 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. to do this. And I couldn't ask one of these young women to go do that, and I couldn't hire somebody fast enough. So I, the CEO of these companies, had to, go down to my studio and which was, the smallest business that I own, but I had to go down there and collect 6 carts of laundry, go to the laundromat.
Nice sweaty laundry too.
Yeah. I mean, it's disgusting. And do these, and I don't know how many loads it was, and then fold all the stuff, put it back in the carts, take it back to the studio, unload it from my SUV, drive home, go to sleep, wake up, go play CEO all day, at the headquarters, only to go back the next night until I could get an outsourced laundry service and all, but that took a couple of weeks to do. And I'm telling you, by about the 4th night, I'm like, it broke me. Like, I can't do this. Like, what am I doing? I'm just going to shut this whole business down. I'm going to take a $500,000 loss. I don't care. This is just not worth it.
I hate laundry.
Over laundry. Over laundry. So it wasn't, and I write about that because I go, it's not going to be this big strategic thing where we're supposed to go left and we went right. I mean, it may be, but that'll just be like, that's life, that's business. It's going to be this stupid little stuff that, like with RockBox, it was we had a brand new space in a brand new building that, was new construction. I was the first tenant in there. Well, they hadn't brought internet. Well, hey, it's kind of hard to run your business if you don't have internet wired to the building. You can't really run off, a whole business off a hotspot on your phone. It didn't have, we first opened for pre-launch, there was no heat or light yet because I had to start pre-launching. And so we're literally selling like in the cold in December in the dark with an emergency light in the hallway, and people are giving us their credit cards, like this crazy stuff. Legit. Yeah, exactly. But again, every night I'm driving home, I'm like, what the hell am I doing, man? I was, I used to get off an airplane and there'd be somebody holding a sign with my name when I came out of baggage claim. And, now I'm freaking selling gym memberships in the dark. What am I doing? And so those things are what they drop you to your knees and you're like, I can't do this. But if you get through that night, if you get through that day or whatever it is, that week, you'll come out the other end and you'll go, I did it. Wow, I got a successful business. I'm making money. I'm changing people's lives. I've created jobs. I'm helping, which is an amazing feeling as an entrepreneur. But you got to get through those things that, they're funny now, but they're not funny when it's happening. It's just, it brings out every emotion and it just tears you apart. And it's dumb little things, but it's, no power, no internet, or, stupid, 6 carts of laundry every day. But and it's funny, I do look back and laugh, although I was going through my phone, looking for a picture I'd taken. And I got back to like 2022 when we opened that business, and I have pictures of the workroom and I had PTSD when I saw those
the
stacks
misery,
of laundry.
yeah.
It wasn't funny. I was like, that's still terrible. That's still terrible to look at.
I feel triggered.
But, yeah, still triggered, exactly. But so I would just, everyone says this. I know, this is not novel. Just don't quit. Like, just don't quit, because I can tell you the universe is not conspiring against you, but it'll feel like the universe is conspiring against you. What's happening is you're growing as a person and you're growing as an entrepreneur, but that growth is painful, and that pain can be intense. And because of our fight or flight nature, we want to flight, right?
Right.
But or freeze.
Right, freeze. Freeze. Sometimes it's just freezing.
Freeze. Yeah. But we have to fight through that. And I'm the guy here. I'm telling you, I've been on all sides of this, and I'm the guy that is, still, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back as an entrepreneur, but being, I think through a lot of the harder stuff until I started another business, but through a lot of the harder stuff, it is so rewarding when you look back over your shoulder and say, I didn't quit. I didn't give up. And when, a lot of businesses fail, we know that. And I will tell you, they don't have to. Like everybody says, well, 95% businesses, small businesses fail. But there's a reason. Usually it's because somebody was not willing to do what others aren't willing to do, so they can have what others don't have, right? And I just know that there's so many times I could have just, this is just, it's not worth it. Because at the time it doesn't feel worth it. But when you get to the other side of that, when you get to the top of the mountain, when you get through that storm, it is worth it.
Right.
You just have to have the resolve and the tenacity. This is, a lot of this comes down to showing up. 80% of this, just keep showing up. I think I shared with you again before we went live. We were talking about the 529 plan. My son is 20, almost 21. He's out in Los Angeles, and he's chasing his dream of being a music producer, which is highly competitive, and it's all, and all that stuff. And he'll call me every so often. He's just like, Dad, I have imposter syndrome, and it's just hard. And, and I don't know when this is going to happen. And he's doing the whole, it's like the LA story, working, restaurants and making music at night and all, and I said, and I just keep telling this, I'm like, Jackson, just keep showing up.
Yeah.
Keep showing up. And I mean, again and again and again. And when you think you're done, you keep going. And then when you think you're done, you go further. And eventually you're going to wake up when you're 25 or 26, and you're going to look to your left and you're going to look to your right. And all these guys and gals that are with you right now, they're going to move back to Iowa, Chicago, Florida, and they're going to say, they're going to have given up, and you'll be the last man standing. And by default, you will win, and you will get that record contract or be able to produce that person's music or, write the score for that TV show, because there will be no one else that has started with you that has the connections. There'll be other kids coming up underneath you forever and always.
Yeah, chasing you. Yeah.
Yeah, chasing you, right? And that's the game. That's the game. But just don't quit. And that's the same message I would give entrepreneurs listening to this: is when you refuse to give up, no matter how ridiculous the situation is, you're winning. You're winning.
That was all really powerful examples. A couple of things were sticking out to me as far as, being a leader and being willing to do the unpleasant tasks, and not asking anybody to do anything you wouldn't do yourself, I think is really, I remember when I was in my 20s, I was working for a PR firm, and we were opening a new restaurant in the town and in our town, and the company came from out of state, or the leadership came from out of state, and we're about to open the doors for one of the VIP nights. And one of the owners of the company comes up with a mop and starts mopping the entryways. Like, here's how I like to mop. And you start swabbing the deck. And I was just like, that is really powerful. Like, I just stood there watching, thinking, he was not afraid to, it was not beneath him. He was like, this is how we mop floors in this business. And I was like, hell yeah.
Yep. Hells to the yeah. That's leadership.
And also just that grittiness and fortitude. I do think, a lot of times it's just some days when it's so hard, it's just, we just have to put one foot in front of the other and just show up, and just showing up is winning sometimes, and showing up longer than the others, than the
Yeah.
competition.
I mean, it sounds like a cliche,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not. It's how you win.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you win.
Yeah. Okay. So when you were young, did you have a personality trait where maybe you were criticized for it, or you felt embarrassed about it, or just it was pointed out to you a little bit like, oh, you're so competitive or emotional or ambitious or whatever it is. And then, but now as this entrepreneur and successful business owner, you realize it's actually been your superpower all along.
Mm-hmm. Yep. My wife, if she heard this, she'd laugh. It is, I had a pretty, I wouldn't say strict. I would, just very dominant father, very
Mm-hmm.
dominant father, a dominant personality.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, I don't want to be dominated by anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anybody to have control over me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would get me in trouble in school sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be a smart ass in school.
Mm-hmm.
I think I made you laugh a couple of times, and I learned to use humor as a way to diffuse stuff at home, right? If it got tense at home, I found, if I was in trouble or I'd done something wrong, I could use humor to lighten the mood, and maybe my punishment would be a little lighter, maybe I wouldn't be grounded as long or whatever. Hey, this humor thing kind of works. And then, I kind of turned into a smart ass in class too, because I just didn't want anybody to lord power over me, if you will. And I mean, I was a good student and did well. And, I wasn't certainly a hooligan by any means, but that feeling of, I can't wait to get out of high school because I don't want to have this, these dominant figures over me. College is a very different experience, as you know, but high school, I can tell you, like, people are like, oh, I missed my high school days. Like, fuck, I do not miss my high school days. Like, it was not my time. I grew into my intellect and all that stuff later. And so, yeah, I think that challenging authority, I couldn't find the damn phrase, but challenging authority was certainly part of my youth and would not always serve me well. And now it serves me really well. It's actually what I challenge everything now. And people, bring me opinions, and I'll say, well, is that perception, or is that fact? Where's the data? Like, and so that challenging and not wanting a boss and having somebody, tell me what to do all the time, that has helped me grow into being, I think, a better leader, because now I am more open to, because that doesn't mean I want to lord power of other people. I want other people to have that autonomy as well. So I empower I have a pretty young team here, and I mean, they're doing things. I have 25, 26-year-olds that are doing things that I worked with 40-year-olds that couldn't do it, and these younger employees that I have, and I some of them got right out of school. I've just given them so much responsibility at such a young age, and a lot of guidance. And I try to do a lot of mentorship and develop them. And like the conference I went to in Austin, I actually brought one of the employees with me, and she did some filming for me for personal brand and stuff. But she also got the benefit of being at this conference, which was around marketing and copywriting and stuff. But so, yeah, I've never been asked that question. That's a great question. And I would say, and I had to think through it, but I would say that for sure it was I challenged authority because I didn't want somebody to have authority over me, 100% to do with the way I grew up. And while that got me in trouble as a student and as a kid, and even I remember even I was 20. I mean, I would ask, I was like 24 or something in this meeting of like 400 people at Eli Lilly, this big pharmaceutical company. And guy at the front, big wig, says something. And I just look around, I'm like, I call bullshit on that. Like I didn't say that, but I raised my hand and asked a really challenging question to this guy. And I was right. I can tell you I was right. But again, which I had a boss later tell me, do you want to be right or do you want to be rich? Do you want to be successful? And it's like, oh, I should think about that, And actually, this woman,
they're both
Rita
delicious. I have to think.
Exactly. I love a good helping of both. Yeah. This woman, Rita, I worked for. Yeah. She said to me once, she took me aside. I was probably 29 or 30 when this happened. And she said, Roger, and I worked for, I think I was a manager or director at the time, and I worked for her. And she said, Roger, and she's this sweet Southern woman. She goes, you can prove your point without proving somebody wrong. And then she just walked away. And that's it. Like, she just said that to me in the sweetest voice and then just walked away. And I just stood there and I was like, okay, that's a life. I mean, I'm telling you about it 30 years later.
Core
20
memory
years later.
Activated.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say that, like, I like to challenge authority, but I've also learned there's a right way to do that and a wrong way to do that. And when I was young, I chose the wrong way every time.
Yes.
It was as much about proving somebody being wrong as it was me being right. And so, through maturity and emotional intelligence, I've tried to grow into being able to do that in a very compassionate way. But yeah, great question, man. I've never been asked that before.
Well, good. Yay. Yeah, no, it's like when you're young, it's just like blunt force is the only tool you really have and can understand. It's like, as you get older, like, how can I be a little craftier about this?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay. Well, we've gotten a lot of nuggets today. This has been so amazing. One final advice question is what piece of advice can you give our listeners today to make their lives and businesses stronger and better?
Instead of thinking of something on the spot, or I would just go back to what I really dug deep on, around persevering and just not quitting. If you've taken the time, or not the time, if you've taken the risk to go out on your own, even if it's a side hustle and you've taken the risk of investing some money and your time. If you're investing time in your business, that's time you could give your children, yourself, or your spouse. So if you've even done that, let alone if you've quit your job and this is like you're all in, you've already done the hardest part. Like, people think that the work is the hardest decision is, I'm going all in and I'm stepping off the cliff, not knowing if there's a safety net down there. And my income, my life is now dependent 100% upon me. That's the hardest decision. And too many entrepreneurs will get caught up 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year later. And I've had this happen even with franchisees, like 6 months in, they're like, I can't do this, sell my business, I can't do it. And I'm thinking, you already made the hardest decision. Yeah. You've already made the hardest decision. So I would just double down, triple down on what I said earlier around continue to push forward. And maybe you'll remember this conversation when something stupid like excess laundry piles up or whatever in your business. You'll think, oh, that's right. He did say it'd be something stupid that would bring you to my knees, because it will be. And that's the point where you got to find it. And then, I guess, on the same side of that coin is, and find people that have been there and can help you and can offer you support. Get in entrepreneur groups, get in, even online chat groups that are positive. Don't stay away from all the toxicity, but positive, that people are trying to build their business and know that it's hard, but they're willing to do the work, and they're not going to bitch about the economy or this or that or the other, because that's not going to help you. Find the people that will help you, and don't quit. And if you do that, you're ahead of 90% of the people.
Love it. Great words to end on. As we wrap up, where can people find you?
Sure. Thank you. So 3 things. They can go to ThriveMoreBrands.com. That's just ThriveMoreBrands.com. And that's going to have our franchises, information on franchising, even if you're just curious about what it is and what it means, just some resources on there. That'll have a link to my book, An Insider's Guide to Business, which is available on Amazon. Again, all the profits go to Right Limiter Arms. And then if you want to follow me, I do make content, and you'll see me do business content. You'll see podcast clips. When I was in Italy on vacation, I actually went and saw AC/DC, who's touring Europe right now. So you'll even see, like, when I go to live concerts, because I am such a live music fan. So you'll see all that at Real Roger Martin. So just Real, ROGER Martin. And that's on, LinkedIn, Instagram, all that kind of stuff.
We'll put all that in the show notes too, if you're blazing down the highway. So.
Awesome.
All right. Well, this has been a tremendous delight. Thank you so much for being here, for all the good you're pouring into the world across the country, and just thanks for being you.
Oh, I really enjoy this. You have great questions. I thank you for your for the insight. It made me think. So I appreciate it. Yeah.
I can just show up and love it. Well, I'm glad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Impatient Entrepreneur. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague and give us a 5-star review. You can also chat with us on Instagram or Facebook at The Impatient Entrepreneur Pod. Want to star on a feature episode? Head over to theimpatiententrepreneur.com to inquire. Thank you to the team at Quidar & Co. for believing in me and bringing this podcast to life. And thank you to Carson Childers for mixing and editing this episode. I can't wait to see you next time.